Hey everyone, what's going on? Christopher, the video game historian here, taking a look at the historical inspirations behind our favorite maps in Battlefield 5, particularly the new map Operation Underground that was recently released for the game. Now this map isn't based off of any one particular battle during the war like the rest of the maps are, but rather takes inspiration from two major battles towards its end in 1945, the Battle of Berlin and the Battle of Hamburg, combining elements of each for this reimagining of the classic Metro map from Battlefield 3. Now since this map takes inspiration from two different battles, I'm only going to be talking about just one of them, and that is going to be the Battle of Hamburg, for the simple fact that this was a British battle against the Germans, while the Battle of Berlin was a Soviet battle. This is the real history of the Battle of Hamburg. Now, unlike the Battle of Berlin, the Battle of Hamburg was a relatively small battle, but an important Allied victory nonetheless. As the Allies had crossed the Rhine River, the American and British forces were quickly advancing through Germany towards Berlin. While the Soviets were advancing from the east, the Americans were advancing from the west, while the British were taking the northern flank across the country. Despite the Americans ending the last major German resistance in the west, Volkssturm militias were called upon by the German High Command and ordered them to protect their cities and to halt the Allied advance by whatever means necessary from reaching Berlin. The only resistance that the British ran into during their advance was in the town of Bremen, where the German forces managed to hold off the British for about a week before being forced to retreat. The surviving soldiers withdrew themselves to the Jutland Peninsula, where they would make their final stand at the defense of Hamburg. It would be the British 7th Armored Division that was tasked with attacking the city, and on April 18th, the battle began. The 7th Armored Division began their advance and attacked the town of Harburg, making their way towards the Elbe River, while elements from 12 Corps began attacking Hamburg from the northwest. By April 20th, the towns of Julsen, Welle, Tollstedt, and Darsdorf were all captured by the British, and on April 21st, their advance would come to a halt for 5 days in preparations of assaulting the city. However, before the British had any chance to attack, the German resistance forces attempted a counterattack from Warendorf with support from 88mm and 75mm howitzers from the town center. Despite the intense fighting, the German resistance were forced back once British tanks arrived. 2 days after the counterattack on April 28th, the British finally managed to break into and enter the city of Hamburg. With the Autobahn destroyed, the advance was slow, but once inside the city, the Germans had put up a heavy resistance, forcing the British into close quarters combat, fighting from house to house with no signs of slowing down, giving up, or surrendering. For the Germans, this was their last stand. Should Hamburg fall, Berlin would fall and the Nazi Empire would fall. Despite fighting getting fiercer and fiercer, the more the British advanced into the city, the pockets of resistance throughout were falling apart very quickly the longer the battle lasted. During the third day of the battle on April 30th, Adolf Hitler would end up committing suicide in his underground bunker in Berlin as the Soviets began closing in on the city. With the Führer gone, the commander of the Northern Forces, General Alvin Volz, made his way to Hamburg on May 2nd and formally surrendered the city over to the British the very next day. The German High Command would officially surrender the war just a few days later on May 7th, thus ending the war in Europe. And that's really all I have on the history of the Battle of Hamburg. Perhaps when the Soviets enter the game, I'll talk more about the Battle of Berlin as well. But until then, what do you all think of the new map? Do you prefer the Conquest variant of it, or the Breakthrough variant of it? Or do you just prefer Operation Metro from Battlefield 3 a lot more? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media with Twitter and Facebook, and until next time, I'll see you all on the battlefield.